Public-private partnerships. How can PPPs deliver better services? Managing the procurement cycle for success. The South African Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program.
I'm Karen Breitenbach and I'm from the IPP office in South Africa, and this is my colleague Lina Mangondo, also from the IPP office. Lina and Maduna and Kombeni started the IPP program in 2010 under a memorandum of understanding between the Treasury, the Department of Energy and the Development Bank of Southern Africa's DBSA. Yeah, I remember those early days. The Minister of Energy was very committed to this IPP program and going green in South Africa. We had end of 2011 COP17 in South Africa, remember, and there was an interministerial committee. We had a shortage of electricity and we had to develop the program. The idea for us was that there cannot be any sterilized megawatt in the system, and conceptualizing this program, we had to get to a point where we made sure that every bid that came in will then also close. We appointed through the DBSA our consultants, and the choice was really the best consultants that we could find, and most of our consultants had experience with the banks, remember, because for us it was, this is not going to be negotiable. So the documents will go out, and everybody will sign on the dotted line. But then we had to make sure, obviously, that our documents will be bankable. And therefore, in the process towards the bid release period, we had interactions with the banks. Remember the Friday afternoon meetings where we tested ideas with them. People from all over the world came to see us. The Spanish were coming in. The Germans were here, Italians came to see us, and we basically learned from the market, remember. It was a very interesting time during that first 6 to 8 months before we released the documents.
And I think what also for us in kickstarting the program, we had to undertake a legal and regulatory due diligence just to see what sort of legal requirements needed to be fulfilled in undertaking any sort of procurement process, as well as to understand if there were any legal impediments. And we were fortunate in that we had a department that was committed, and the key decision makers, when we needed them, they were always there to make the decisions. So whilst the Principal Act allowed or enabled certain activities just to ensure that we could ultimately deliver on our objectives, we also then put in place regulations which, due to the commitment from the department, we were able to do in the shortest possible time. And what also helped us is we realized that we didn't have the capacity as government to do the project development itself, and we decided that we would leave that to private sector. But what was within the government family as something we needed to manage were all the consents that they needed to obtain. We had interactions with all of our other sister departments, and in particular Department of Environmental Affairs, Department of Water Affairs, as well as Agriculture and Fisheries, because most of these projects were going to be located on pieces of land that were historically used for agriculture.
I remember. And we also had the idea of getting some of the benefits of the project also going to the communities and the upliftment of communities. So the development of our documents included a part where we asked the private sector to come and tell us how can they help us to do the upliftment of communities, Black economic empowerment, preferential procurement, bringing in women into the space, all of those softer issues. So it wasn't only about the megawatts, it was also about the benefits to the country. And then after we released the documents in August, we got all of those thousands of, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but questions from them, and we had to do those briefing notes to explain what the documents, in fact, tried to say. So we had to clarify some of the points in the documents. But that didn't sort of change the documents, was more clarification, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was more, I think when you're drafting documents, it tends to make sense to you, but to another person reading it, they may not have the same understanding. So it was basically to do that. And we were always driven in all that we did, and part of the objectives was to ensure that we had challenges from an electricity perspective. So in the design of the documents, we tried to ensure that ultimately we got back projects or bids that were robust and would be able to deliver the megawatts that we needed into the system in the shortest possible time. And I think what also helped us to get to a bid window 2 and where we are today, having had 5 successful bid rounds, is the fact that the process and the way our documents were drafted led to an outcome that the market, not just in South Africa but internationally, could identify with. It was open, transparent, and as we've done since bid window 2, is to ensure that we have competition by putting a cap on the megawatts that are available.
Yeah, and the evaluation. And nobody ever doubted about what happened during the evaluation, because it was in a secured environment, everything was recorded. We had 2 streams of evaluation. One was for government, one was our transaction advisors, and the documents were signed off after evaluation before it went to the department for approval. So everybody felt that it was a clean process, it was open, transparent, and everybody could ask about how the evaluation happened. And we are lucky now, after, as you say, 5 bid windows, we have got about, 5,000 megawatts, more or less, that procured, and about 2,000 already delivering electricity.
And I think for us that's a great achievement.
Yeah.
And from that we've started embarking on other programs. We've even got a core program out, and because of success on renewables, we again have international players coming into our market and wanting to participate in the core program.
Yeah. I think also the discipline that comes through the PPP process and how you do it and the design of the documents, I think all of that has learned us a lot in doing this renewable energy program in South Africa.
And again, it's the robustness applied in the PPP process that we've replicated that has ensured that we have the success. And as you said, a committed department, because as long as you don't have commitment from the relevant departments and key decision makers, these projects tend to drag out. And from a private sector perspective, they're continuously incurring additional costs. So
and they become fatigued. I mean, they just lose interest. It unravels. So it is very important to run a process and conclude and get success and do something else. But just running it and negotiating, it gives people that tiredness in these big infrastructure programs.
This has been an Open Learning Campus presentation brought to you by the World Bank Group, accelerating solutions through learning.